Hey Wargamers, Doug here from 2Plus Stuff, and in this video we're going to talk about the cheapest way to get into Age of Sigmar.
Okay.
Alright, now to clarify, we're talking about the absolute dirt cheapest way to start playing the game. This is going to be really great if you are young, broke, or if you're looking for a second army so that you can do demos and introduce new people with, or just kind of branch out and try something different. Now, it's hard to mention getting started in the game without talking about the Start Collecting boxes. They are a wide range of model values and things like that, so if you are interested in those, we have a full review of each one of them on this channel. You can go ahead and find that by looking in the show notes down below. Really, they're a great way to get started for, model per dollar, ways to be, but they're not a full army. And in addition to that, to make it a full army, you kind of have to look at the faction as a whole. Some Start Collecting boxes are a great model at value for the models that are in them, but then when you talk about expanding to an entire army, things get much more expensive. For example, Clan Pestilence. That's a fantastic box, but when you think about the sheer number of rats you're going to need, it's a lot. It adds up, no matter how many Start Collecting boxes you buy. Good God, there's so many freaking rats. Now, on the flip side, moving away from having a lot of models, you can also be kind of deceptively expensive, but what kind of models? For example, like KO, Cadron Overlords. The Start Collecting box is a great value, but the second you move away from it, all the models in that line get really pricey. I don't think the kids need to go to college. No, not this time. Point being, look at the entire product line before just jumping in thinking that these Start Collecting boxes are the way to go. A great way to start is always the 2-player starter set if you have a buddy who wants the other side of the army. Realistically, it's the best value per dollar when you're talking about the amount of models that you get. Also, you can hop on eBay and grab the halves individually. I checked today, you can get the Stormcast half for around 80 bucks and the Khorne half for around 65. Just keep in mind that with those independent sellers on eBay and things like that, their prices are always kind of in flux depending on demand and just how good those armies are. They're always going to charge more if it's more competitive. What I will say though, and that I think is often forgotten, is the Thunder in Blood set, which you're looking at right now. This is a fantastic set. Basically, it's a scaled down version of the 2-player starter. You lose the Lord Celestin on a Dracoth, the Mighty Lord of Khorne, and the Bloodsecrator, the big staff guy that puts the banner down and all the Khorne guys go wild. Which is easy to say, those are the best parts of the Khorne side and a really great leader for the Stormcast. True. But what you get in exchange is it goes from being 120 bucks to 80, and all of a sudden it comes with a little board to play on if you're doing practice games for the beginning. If you are that guy who's buying a second army for a demo, this is the place to go. Now, if you can also split this with a friend, all of a sudden you just saved a ton of money because for 40 bucks, you get one half of that starter set. Now, there is one little thing I want to note about those boxes, the 2-player starter and also the Blood and Thunder, is that the Retributors you get for the Stormcast Eternals, they're not actually a full unit. And so that's something to keep in mind when you're thinking about prices. Okay, Doug, so you're looking at a cheap army. What is the cheapest that I can come up with having model quality as well as not being so one-sided, right? It's not single dimensional. It has a lot of things to get new players and young players engaged in trying different kinds of models. Okay, here it goes. I'm going to rapid fire it real quick for you. You buy the Blood and Thunder set. You get the Stormcast Eternal Start Collecting box. That box has the missing components of your Retributor unit. So now you have a full unit of those. Very, very important. They actually go kind of hand in hand. It also nets you a leader with a command ability. Remember, if you buy the Blood and Thunder set for Stormcast, you lose the Lord Celestin on a Dracoth. You still get the Relictor, but if you add the Start Collecting box, now all of a sudden you have a full unit of your Judicators as well as the Lord Celestin on foot, who is actually a very good army piece for this force. Now, stopping right there, this comes out to be about 800 points. I say about because Editions Change and General's Handbook will adjust and kind of nudge points, but at the time of this video, it's around 800 points. Filling in that 200 point gap, you can either buy a box of Paladins, which is 60 bucks. You get 5 of them, and 2 of the 3 options are 200 points on the nose. Or, even cheaper, you can go onto eBay and buy 2 of those Liberator units from independent sellers selling them off. I think they're 11 bucks, something like that, and buff up 2 of your existing units. This gives you a full list, 1,000 points, and it's really, really cheap. Okay, so now we're going to even cheaper, okay? You're going to go black primer. My favorite is flat primer from, I think it's like a camouflage paint, like for hunters use on camouflaging things. Retropeater Gold, Eschen Gray, Corn Red, Lead Belcher, and Nuln Oil, as well as a dry brush and a standard, whatever, medium layer brush. Put all that together, you have an Anvils of Heldenhammer army. And it's got all the fixins. It's not just a static line. You've got infantry, you've got heavier dudes like the Paladin unit you have the flyers with the prosecutors, you have a leader with a command ability, everything, and it's really, really cheap. Keep in mind you can save money by buying cheaper brushes and the black primer, just not the GW kind, from your local hardware store. And after you sell off the corn stuff, like the corn half of the Blood and Thunder, or trade it, whatever you want to do, this comes out roughly to be like 160-ish. Now, of course, there's other options. People are going to talk about the most dollar-efficient ways to build armies, but the thing that makes this one unique is that it includes all the hobby supplies that you need as well. A lot of people, when they're coming up with budget armies, don't think of that kind of stuff. Because if you're new, you don't have these things. And to be honest, I like this because it's very, very balanced. Meaning you could theoretically have fewer purchases and buy units that are high in point value, right? You could just do a bunch of big stompy dinosaurs from Seraphon, but it doesn't give you the full experience of the game. This is a very balanced list where you're activating in almost every phase of the game. You have shooting on the prosecutors, is really your only gun, but everything else, you have some cool abilities. Conversely, it's not the Blood Reaver spam that you get from some people who just kind of buy up the disparate parts of the corn half. Now, there's nothing wrong with that. It is also still a cheap army, and it's actually very comparable to this. The thing is, though, is that for a new player, painting that many Blood Reavers can be daunting. I'm not talking about 20 that you get in the main set. I'm talking if you max out with the cheapest thing what you could possibly make, that's a lot of dudes. But friends, just like every video, this is the start of a discussion, and I'd like to hear your thoughts. Do you have kind of a go-to mold for getting people a cheap entry point into the hobby? It can include startling the boxes. I want to hear about that. Also, the battle forces that kind of seem to change every once in a while, so that's why I didn't mention them, are also really great ways. I'd love to hear your thoughts. Leave it in the comments down below. I'm hoping to do more videos like this where it's more off the cuff, more just talking to you guys about various topics. Things people ask me personally, not necessarily like lore questions put in the comments, but people message me on Facebook and ask me these kinds of things about getting into the hobby, how to play, stuff like that. Regardless, thank you guys so much for spending your time with me here today. I look forward to seeing you in my next AOS and 40k video. Hey friends, I hope you enjoyed that video, and I want to introduce you to some awesome folks. These are my patrons over on Patreon, and they make this show possible by their direct support of me to buy battle tomes and black library books and all the material I need and the hardware support that I need to make this stuff possible. And if you'd like to join them, go ahead and click over to the Patreon page, to the link in the description down below, and you'll be introduced to a really awesome community of people talking about the hobby, sharing what they're painting. I invite them to be part of polls to decide what content comes next. I raffle off every battle tome that I review, and we're having some great fun and discussions over there. So go ahead and check it out. Now, if you can't support in that way, that's completely fine. I'm just so glad that you watched this video here today. And if you have an Age of Sigmar lore question, go ahead and click subscribe and leave it in the comments down below. I read every single question and comment. I respond to as many as I possibly can, but I use them all as inspiration for future videos. So go ahead and do that now. And I look forward to seeing you guys on my next Age of Sigmar lore video. Thank you so much for watching, and happy wargaming.